My daughter and her husband kicked me out. But that same day, my life turned around. Chapter 1: The Unthinkable. I never imagined I'd end up sleeping in my car at 63 years old. Not after working my fingers to the bone for 4 decades. And certainly not because my own daughter had shown me the door. My name's Glenys Thompson. Born and raised in Palmerston North, heart of the Manawat. I've weathered my share of storms in this life, droughts that killed our family's farm in the 80s, the marriage that collapsed like a sandcastle, and raising my Sophie on my own since she was knee-high to a grasshopper. But nothing quite prepared me for that Tuesday morning in April when I found myself staring at my packed bags by the front door. "It's just not working out, Mum," Sophie had said the night before, her pregnant belly stretching the fabric of her favorite Kathmandu fleece. Her husband Jack stood behind her, arms folded, eyes fixed on the remove floorboards of their Hamilton East bungalow. "Jack and I need our space. For the baby." I blinked at her, stunned as a possum in headlights. "But love, you both asked me to move in." I sold my place in Palmy. Sold almost everything I owned. "I know, and I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking just enough to give me hope this wasn't really happening. "Maybe it's best you find your own place. Just for a while. Just for a while." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a bushfire. We both knew what they really meant. I'd spent 30 years juggling shifts at the dairy, cleaning offices at night, and still making it to every netball game and school concert. My hands cracked and bleeding from cheap cleaning products, but I'd never missed a single parent-teacher evening. I'd even sold Nana's Punamu, the one treasure in our family passed down through 4 generations, just to help pay for Sophie's uni fees down in Dunedin. That night, I lay awake in the spare room that had been mine for the past 8 months, listening to the muffled voices of my daughter and son-in-law arguing in their bedroom. I caught fragments, your mother, hovering, our life, each word a small cut. I pulled the duvet over my head like I used to do as a child during thunderstorms, but no amount of cotton and feathers could block out the reality crashing around me. I never thought I'd join the ranks of the grey-haired homeless. Yet here I was, 63 years young, with nowhere to go, a modest retirement fund that wouldn't stretch to today's rental prices, and a daughter whose loyalty had shifted to the man who'd been in her life for all of 3 years. As the first light of dawn filtered through the Venetian blinds, I made a decision. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't break down. Not in front of them, anyway. Dignity might be all I had left, but by crikey, I'd hold onto it with both hands. Chapter 2: The Betrayal. The next morning, I found my bags packed near the front door. Not by Sophie, her handwriting wasn't on the luggage tags. Must have been Jack's doing. He'd even labelled them, neat as a pin, Glenys kitchen items, Glenys bedroom. As if I were freight being shipped off. Sophie was sitting at the kitchen table, clutching her morning tea, eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Jack was nowhere to be seen, probably working from home in his study, conveniently avoiding the mess he'd helped create. "I've made you some scones for the road," Sophie said, gesturing to a paper bag on the counter. My own recipe. The one I'd taught her when she was 9. I picked up the bag, feeling its warmth against my palm. "That's lovely, darling," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Thank you." "Where will you go?" she asked, finally meeting my eyes. The question knocked the wind out of me. Where would I go? My old friends in Palmy had their own struggles, caring for sick partners, downsizing to retirement villages, moving in with their kids just like I had done. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I've got options," I lied, summoning a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Don't you worry about your old mum. I always land on my feet, She nodded, relief washing over her features too quickly. It hurt to see how eager she was to believe me, to absolve herself. I've put some money in your account, she said quietly. It's not much, but it might help until you sort things out. Charity from my own child. I swallowed the lump in my throat. That's very kind. Jack thinks, she started, then stopped herself. We think it's for the best. Just until after the baby comes. Then maybe. The unfinished promise hung between us, as substantial as morning mist. We both knew there would be no after the baby invitation. Once I was gone, that door would close forever. I looked around the kitchen, at the herb garden I'd planted on the windowsill, the vintage tea towels I'd collected over decades and brought to Brighton, their modern decor, the family photos I'd framed for the wall. One showed 3 generations, my mother, myself, and Sophie at her university graduation. My chest tightened. Would my grandchild even know me? I should get going, I said, reaching for my car keys. Traffic will be shocking if I don't. The goodbye was awkward, a half hug, Sophie's belly between us like a physical manifestation of the new life pushing me out. Drive safe, Mum, she said, eyes darting to the clock. She had a midwife appointment at 10. I knew because I'd written it on the calendar hanging by the fridge. The calendar I'd bought. I didn't say much as I loaded my bags into my little Toyota Corolla, the car Sophie had tried to convince me to sell when I moved in because we can drop you wherever you need to go. Thank God I'd been stubborn about keeping it. As I reversed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Jack, watching from the upstairs window. He raised his hand in what might have been a wave, but to me looked more like a dismissal. Good riddance. I made it exactly 5.7 kilometers down the road before the tears came, blurring my vision until I had to pull over. I parked up by Lake Karapiro, under the shade of a Futokawa tree, its red flowers long gone, but its twisted branches offering shelter. There, with only the occasional jogger passing by, I finally let myself fall apart. All that mahi, all that aroha, was it for nothing? I whispered to the dashboard, using the Maori words that had become part of the fabric of New Zealand English. All that work. All that love. As the tears subsided, I reached for my phone, scrolling through contacts, looking for someone, anyone who might have a spare couch. The screen lit up with a notification. A message. Little did I know, this message would change everything. Chapter 3, The Breaking Point. The notification was from Maria Connor, my old boss from the beachside cafe in Tauranga, where I'd worked summers during Sophie's university years. We'd kept in loose touch through Facebook, liking each other's posts, the occasional birthday message. Hey Glennis, we are short-staffed again. Any chance you're around? Bethany's gone on maternity leave early, and I'm desperate for someone who knows what they are doing. Thought of you straight away. X. I stared at the screen, my hand trembling slightly. Tauranga. The Bay of Plenty. 2 hours north. A place where I'd been happy once, if only temporarily. A place where nobody knew my current circumstances, where I wouldn't have to explain the family betrayal that had left me careless. I gulped down the remains of my now cold tea from the thermos and dialed Marie's number before I could overthink it. Marie? It's Glennis. Glennis. You got my message. Please tell me you're not in bloody Scotland, or somewhere equally useless. Despite everything, I laughed. Marie had always been like this, direct, irreverent, with the energetic chaos of someone perpetually overdosed on her own coffee. No, I'm free, I said, choosing my words carefully. In fact, I'm in Hamilton. Not far at all. You're joking. That's bloomin' perfect. When can you start? Tomorrow? Today? 20 minutes ago would be ideal, to be honest. I glanced at my car, packed to the brim with my remaining possessions. It's a bit complicated. I'm kind of between accommodations at the moment. There was a pause. Marie had always been perceptive. Too perceptive. Glenys Thompson, are you telling me you need a place to stay? I closed my eyes, humiliation washing over me. It's temporary. I just need to sort out. The flat above the cafe is empty, she cut in. Has been since Ryan moved to Wellington. It's nothing flash, just a bedroom, tiny lounge, bathroom, and a kitchenette, but it's yours if you want it. Marie, I couldn't possibly. Too right you can, she said firmly. No rent, just show up and be your lovely self. Help me run this madhouse. The tourists are already starting to arrive for winter, and I'm short-handed. You'd be doing me a favor. I felt tears threatening again. Are you sure? As sure as the Breakers will choke in the finals. Again. She laughed at her own basketball reference. Now, get your bum up here. I'll have the key and a proper cup of tea waiting. As I ended the call, I sat there stunned, staring at the tranquil surface of Lake Karapiro. The universe had thrown me a lifeline when I'd been certain I was drowning. That night, I drove straight to Turanga, the coastal highway unfolding before me as the setting sun turned the ocean to molten gold. With each kilometer, I felt the vice grip around my chest loosen just a fraction. By the time I pulled up behind the beachside cafe, darkness had fallen, but Marie stood waiting, illuminated by the back door light, arms crossed against the autumn chill. You made it, she called, hurrying over to help with my bags. Crikey, you travel light for a woman your age. Where's all your stuff? The innocent question hit harder than she could have known. This is it, I said quietly. This is all I've got now. Marie stopped, my suitcase in hand, and looked at me properly for the first time. I knew what she saw, a woman worn thin by betrayal, eyes puffy from crying, shoulders slumped in defeat. Without a word, she put down the suitcase and wrapped her arms around me. I stiffened at first, then melted into the embrace, sobbing against her shoulder like a child. Oh, love, she murmured, patting my back. What have they done to you? Chapter 4, The Unexpected Turn. I slept for 12 hours straight that first night in Turanga, in the little flat above the cafe, lulled by the distant sound of waves and the exhaustion of emotional trauma. When I finally woke, disoriented and stiff, sunlight was streaming through unfamiliar curtains, and the smell of fresh coffee and baking bread wafted up from below. For one blessed moment, I forgot everything. Then reality crashed back, and I curled into myself, pulling the duvet over my head. A sharp knock at the door jolted me upright. Glenys? You alive in there? It's gone 10, and the morning rush is mental. Marie. The cafe. My new life, whatever that might be. Coming. I called, voice scratchy. Give me 5 minutes. I splashed cold water on my face, ran a brush through my silver bob, and pulled on the first clean clothes I found in my suitcase. No time for makeup or self-pity. In some ways, it was a blessing. Downstairs, the cafe was heaving, every table full, a line at the counter, and Marie single-handedly juggling coffee orders, food service, and the till. Thank God, she breathed when she saw me. Can you still make a flat white without embarrassing yourself? In my sleep, I replied, tying an apron around my waist. Point me at the machine. And just like that, I was working again. The muscle memory came back instantly, the hiss of steam, the tamp of coffee grounds, the perfect milk temperature judged by touch. For the next 4 hours, I thought of nothing but orders and customers, my personal catastrophe temporarily pushed aside by the immediate demands of the present. When the lunch rush finally subsided, I collapsed onto a chair, my legs aching in a way they hadn't since my cleaning days. "You're a bloody lifesaver," Marie declared, sliding a plate of avocado toast in front of me. "Eat? You look like you might blow away in a strong breeze." I realized I was ravenous. "Thanks. For everything, I mean. Not just the food." She waved dismissively. "Don't go soft on me now. Tell me what happened. The real story, not the sanitized version." Over that late lunch, with the cafe empty save for an elderly couple lingering over their tea, I told Marie everything. The sale of my house in Palmerston North, the invitation to live with Sophie and Jack, the gradual cooling of welcome, the final eviction. "The absolute cheek of it," Marie fumed when I finished. "After all you've done. After you sold your home. They're starting a family," I said, surprising myself by defending them. "They want their space." "I understand it, in a way." "Bollocks," Marie snorted. "My mother lived with us until the day she died, and yes, she drove me up the wall sometimes, but you don't toss family aside like yesterday's newspaper." I pushed my plate away, appetite gone again. I just keep wondering where I went wrong. Did I smother Sophie? Was I too involved? Not involved enough? "Stop that right now," Marie said sharply. "This isn't on you. It's on them. Particularly that Jack fella, if you ask me. Men like him want their wives all to themselves. No competing influences." I thought about Jack, his subtle digs, his cold politeness, the way he'd started scheduling family outings without telling me until they were heading out the door. Maybe, I conceded. But Sophie went along with it. That's what hurts the most. Marie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Look, you're here now. You've got work, a roof over your head, and me for company, God help you. One day at a time, one day at a time." It became my mantra. That evening, after closing up shop, I walked down to Mount Maunganui Beach. The air was crisp with early autumn, the sea a deep twilight blue. I climbed halfway up the mount, as far as my tired legs would carry me, and watched the lights of Tauranga twinkle to life across the harbor. For the first time since finding my bags packed, I felt a flicker of something other than grief. Not quite hope, but perhaps its distant cousin. Possibility. The next morning, I was up before dawn, restless with nervous energy. I slipped out for a walk along the beach, the sand cool beneath my bare feet. The sun rose over the ocean, painting the world in shades of pink and gold, and I felt lighter than I had in years. By the time I returned to open the cafe, a new resolution had formed in my heart. This forced upheaval, painful as it was, offered something I hadn't had in decades, a clean slate. No one's mother, no one's caretaker. Just Glenys. The question was, who was Glenys, when stripped of all her roles and responsibilities? I was about to find out. Chapter 5, The Rebirth. Weeks passed, then months. Summer tourists gave way to autumn locals. I fell into a rhythm at the beachside cafe, opening at 6, perfecting my cheese scone recipe that soon had regulars lining up before doors opened, closing at 4, then walking the mount, or along the beach every evening, regardless of weather. My body, which had felt so heavy and exhausted in Sophie's house, grew stronger. My mind, which had been clouded with hurt and confusion, began to clear. I made friends, real ones, not just the polite acquaintances I'd accumulated in Hamilton, where I'd always been Sophie's mum rather than myself. There was Jim, the retired marine biologist who came in every morning for a long black and the newspaper, and who taught me the names of seabirds during our occasional shed walks. There was Aroha, the young Maori woman who worked weekends at the cafe while studying marine law, and who reminded me of Sophie at that age, fierce, funny, full of plans. And there was Marie, who turned out to be not just an employer, but a true friend. She noticed when I was having a down day, and covered for me without comment. She introduced me to her book club, her lawn bowls team, her vast network of Mount Maunganui locals. One rainy Tuesday in July, after a particularly slow day at the cafe, Marie sat me down with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," she began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Dangerous pastime," I quipped, wiping down tables. "I'm not getting any younger," she continued, ignoring my attempt at humor. "Running this place 7 days a week is killing me slowly. I've been thinking about cutting back. Maybe just weekdays. Maybe selling up altogether." My stomach dropped. If she sold the cafe, what would happen to me? To my little flat? To this new life I'd built? "I understand," I said carefully. "You've earned a rest. The thing is," she said, fidgeting with a teaspoon, "the cafe's doing better than ever since you came on board. Your cheese scones alone have doubled our morning trade." "They are just Nana's recipe, with a bit of rosemary added," I demurred. "It's not just the scones. It's you. The way you remember everyone's name, their usual order. The way you've reorganized the kitchen so it actually makes sense. The new suppliers you found that cut our costs by nearly 20%. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just common sense." "It's experience," Marie corrected. "And it's exactly what this place needs." She took a deep breath. "How would you feel about becoming a partner in the business?" I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "A partner? But I don't have any money to invest. Everything I had went into Sophie's house." "Investment doesn't have to be just financial," Marie said. "Your experience, your work ethic, the new life you've breathed into this place, that's worth more than cash to me." "I don't know what to say," I whispered, overwhelmed. "Say yes, you silly woman. We'll sort out the details. Equal partners. I'll handle the books and ordering, you'll manage the kitchen and staff. We'll both get 2 days off a week, imagine that luxury." I thought about it. Me, a business owner at 63. A new beginning when I'd thought I was nearing the end. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "Yes, I'd like that very much." 3 days later, we signed the paperwork, and the beachside cafe became Glenys and Marie's overnight, literally, as we stayed up till dawn repainting the sign. The day after our grand reopening, complete with half-price scones and free coffee refills, my phone rang with a number I'd almost forgotten. "Sophie." I stepped outside to take the call, heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Mum?" Her voice sounded small, vulnerable in a way I hadn't heard since she was a teenager. "Hello, love," I said, suddenly breathless. "How are you? How's the baby?" "She's perfect," Sophie said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Ella Grace. Born last week. 7 pounds exactly. A granddaughter." Tears sprang to my eyes. "Congratulations, darling. That's wonderful news." There was a pause, filled with all the things we weren't saying. Then Sophie spoke again, her voice cracking. "Jack's gone, Mum. He left 3 days after Ella was born. Said he wasn't ready for all this. Said he needed to find himself. She gave a bitter laugh. Sound familiar? The parallels to her own father's desertion weren't lost on me. History repeating itself in the cruelest way. Oh, Sophie. I'm so sorry. I miss you, she whispered, her voice breaking completely now. I made a terrible mistake. We never should have asked you to leave. I was so stupid, so blind. I'm so sorry, Mum. The apology I'd longed for months ago now brought me no satisfaction, only a deep sadness for my daughter's pain. Where are you staying? I asked, practical as ever. Still in the house. Jack's paying the mortgage. For now, at least. His parents are horrified at what he's done, so they are making sure he supports us financially. That's something, I said, relief mixing with lingering anger toward my former son-in-law. Mum, Sophie said hesitantly, I know I have no right to ask, but could you come back? Just for a visit. To meet Ella. I need help. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm so tired. The plea in her voice transported me back 25 years, to Sophie's childhood nightmares, her skinned knees, her broken heart after her first boyfriend. My baby, needing me again. But I wasn't the same woman who'd driven away from Hamilton with my life packed in garbage bags. I had a business now. Friends. A purpose beyond being someone's mother or grandmother. I love you, Sophie, I said gently. I always will. And I want to meet my granddaughter more than anything. So you'll come? Hope brightened her voice. I will. But I can't stay, love. I have a life here now. A good one. Where is here? She asked, and I realized she had no idea where I'd been all these months. Tauranga. I'm running a cafe with a friend. Well, co-owning it, actually. Co-owning. Mum, that's amazing. The genuine surprise in her voice stung a little. Had she really thought so little of my capabilities? It is amazing, I agreed. It wasn't the path I would have chosen, but sometimes the universe has other plans for us. We talked for another 20 minutes, about Ella, about the cafe, about her plans for returning to work eventually. When we hung up, I promised to drive down the following weekend to meet my granddaughter. As I walked back into the cafe, Marie raised an eyebrow in silent question. My daughter, I explained. She had the baby. A little girl. Ah, Marie nodded, understanding immediately. And she's left on her own. Her husband's done a runner. Marie's expression darkened. What goes around comes around, I suppose. Are you going to her? I looked around the cafe, at the chalkboard menu in my handwriting, the fresh flowers I'd arranged that morning, the elderly couple in the corner, who came every day for my scones and called me love. For a visit, I said firmly. To meet my granddaughter. But this is home now. Marie smiled, satisfied. Good. You've built something here, Glenys. Something of your own. That evening, I sat on the small balcony of my flat, watching the sunset over the ocean and reflecting on the strange turns my life had taken. 6 months ago, finding my bags packed by the door had felt like the end of the world. Now, I could see it for what it truly was, a painful but necessary shove into a new beginning. Sometimes, when life feels like it's falling apart, it's really just making space for something even better. The trick is to keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other, until you find yourself exactly where you're meant to be. And sometimes, where you're meant to be is the last place you'd ever have thought to look.